what I see in the Nomad community is that there are a lot of avoidant people out there.
So there's a part of them who wants the connection, there's another part who wants to run away from connection at the same time. What do you think people are afraid of?
We hate to be vulnerable, yet that is what we love the most in somebody else. There is this massive paradox.
A friend of mine came to me some time ago and was like, hey, if they have a really good negotiator and I have a situation for you that I need you and some help. Like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? It's like, yeah, I have my flatmates and they're never cleaning up the house and I'm wondering whatever have any technique that I can influence them to start cleaning more. And I thought about for a second. I was like, hey, ever tried?
Let me tell you a fun fact about our podcast. We're at the beginning process and you can have a tremendous influence over our channel. By just liking and subscribing to our channel, you'll help us increase the quality of the videos that we're creating. Also, you'll stay in the loop with the new videos which are coming every week. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Welcome everyone and welcome Danielle.
Thank you so much for inviting me on to have a conversation with you today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is a topic that's I'm very passionate about and also to give a bit of background of conversation, I'm coming from a negotiation background in terms of business and interpersonal and striking deals. And it would be really interesting to see from a relationship perspective or from negotiation perspective, what things we can influence and to learn from one another. So I think that'll be a really interesting dynamic between the two of us.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the digital nomad perspective. And I want to get your take in terms of digital nomad relationship as opposed to like normal relationship that people have when they live in the same city or they stay there for a long period of time. What are you finding to be the biggest differences between those dynamics?
So there's many things. One, obviously, being the logistical challenges that come with being nomadic versus someone that's not, right, is that you've got a transient lifestyle. So people aren't there, for a certain period of time. There's a lot of moving parts, right? And I think that can create a lot of challenges for people. Like logistically, but also I think people can create an excuse for it too. So yes, it can be a problem, but it can also be an excuse. Does that make sense?
In a sense of not to be in a relationship or not to have a good relationship?
For not to be in a relationship.
Do you think that
for a
people
reason of not going deeper into a relationship, right? Because, we've got different plans, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be going off here and you're going to be going off there. So let's just keep it casual because it's just not going to work.
Do you think that people are nowadays more running away from a relationship as opposed to running towards relationships?
So in my personal experience and professional experience, what I see in the Nomad community is that there are a lot of avoidant people out there. And what I mean by that is having avoidant attachment styles. So the nomadic lifestyle choice is actually a manifestation of an insecurity that they have. And it allows them to protect themselves. They've got walls up, they're detached from people and places, So their nomadic lifestyle is a perfect match where they can meet new people and go to new places and experience new cultures without having to let anyone get really in and get vulnerable and risk getting hurt. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds. And the fact that you are so transient, it keeps people at a distance without having to go too deep.
That's a good point. And you mentioned before that it's a good enough excuse. Is like, I don't necessarily want to walk away from you, but I have to move. So therefore, like, yeah, that's a perfect excuse for like, yeah, that's my lifestyle. That's what I do. I want to live to Bali in 2 weeks. So yeah, as much as I like you, I have to walk away from this.
Exactly. Like, it's not me, it's just a situation.
Okay. So on that sense, what do you think, outside of this, what do you think are the most common things from your experience that people come to you to talk? Because I presume that, you being a relationship therapist, that means that's the rest of the coach. People are coming to you with a degree of hope for health. Like, I want to get better at this. I want to strengthen my relationships, right? So they're in a situation in which they want to make them work.
Yeah.
So what are the most common challenges that people contact you with?
So people are either single and have been single for a long time, and their focus has very much been on work and making their lifestyle happen, right? The nomadic dream. A lot of my clients are also entrepreneurs. They've got their own businesses. And they've maybe got to a point now where they feel like there is this missing puzzle piece, and they actually want to share their lifestyle and their success with somebody, but they actually don't know how to go about it. They've been so stuck in a certain rhythm that they don't know how to redirect their focus. And especially if they're avoidant in their attachment style as well, there's this want, but there's also can be quite a lot of resistance into
so
that.
There's
How
a
do I
part
just
of
do
them
that?
There's a part of them who wants the connection. There's another part who wants to run away from connection at the same time.
Exactly. There's this inner conflict. And I think typically when people do come to me, it's probably they've been experiencing that for a long time. So it's like they're at their like help me stage, like I don't know how to get out of this. So that's kind of one scenario. Another is people that are struggling with relationships, that have a lot of short-term, maybe surface level relationships. A lot of nomads that I know, have no problem, connecting with new people, but it's actually going deeper and building those meaningful connections, right? So we all know the difference between, like a surface level connection and something that is really like deep and meaningful and long lasting. And it's like, again, how do we, go to the depths? How do we move this relationship from surface level? And do the lifestyle at the same time. Often, sorry, go.
I think it's a very interesting point to mention that one of the things, the necessities of a digital nomad lifestyle is to be able to be social and to be able to engage with people, because you're always in an ever-changing environment. So if you want to be social, you have to interact with people, you know how to start with strangers and how to engage with people. But, how would you define the difference between a surface level connection with somebody and a deeper connection? Like, how would you tell the difference?
Good question. I think it does come down to the individual as well. Like, we all have different, a different base level, right, of what we're used to. And I think it's really important for that individual to really understand their emotional landscape, which is also something that I help my clients with. Again, a lot of avoidance are very much in their head versus their body, and often find it hard to understand their emotions. But I think for an individual, there is this feeling that you get with somebody that is surface level versus something that is deeper. And even like the feeling of trust, that feeling of safety, that feeling of loyalty, that feeling of maybe commitment to one another. And I think you feel that in your nervous system. Are you going to open up and be really vulnerable with someone that you have a surface level relationship with? Or are you going to do that with someone where you feel that there is that trust and respect and honesty and safety?
So from the perspective of a person, sorry, Chuck, go on.
No, I'm just going to say in terms of like how that feels. Only you know what that feels like in your body.
So it's an internal feeling that you have towards the person, like, hey, I feel very connected to this person. It's not something that I can quantify. I check a bunch of boxes and okay, I know that I'm fully connected with you because we have similar interests to play tennis together and then meet up once a week or twice a week and we like the same food.
Yeah, exactly. There is that feeling. I think it really, like for me personally, it's like safety and feeling super comfortable. I think often there is this feeling of like familiarity, like you've known this person like forever. And again, like there's no rules. I think, you can meet someone, next week and all of a sudden you just know that you have this very deep connection with them. There is this knowing, internal knowing. And then you might have lifelong friends where you know that you're just surface level.
Yeah, I think it comes sometimes by comparison and you have like long-time friends and then you meet somebody you connect as mentioned, you connect very quickly and very deeply. It's like, oh, all my other connections are not anywhere near this. And becomes like comparison of, oh, I didn't know that I can go so connected with some person before I met this person.
Yeah. And I think comparisons can be so powerful, for you to like understand the polarities to help you distinguish one another in your different relationships that you have.
Also helps you understand yourself. It's like, because sometimes I think most of the time connection happens involuntarily, like you're not doing something specific, you do something specifically well, but like there are a lot of things that match the other person. So it's like you realize things about yourself as well. It's like, oh, I like this. I'm really comfortable around this. I like this energy. And then like that's a journey of self-knowledge as well.
Yeah, and that's what I love about relationships because they do teach us so much. They are literally our mirrors. And it's like, and often, I was single for a long time, and you kind of miss what you're saying there is that, you're constantly almost like gaining knowledge, right? From just being in a dynamic with another person, and especially on an intimate level where you have less walls up and you're constantly, understanding more about yourself from that dynamic. And when I was single for a couple of years, I missed that. And I'm in a relationship and I'm like, it's just so much fun. It's this whole new level of exploration again.
Yeah, I heard this quote sometimes ago, which goes like, I can't learn everything about myself from myself, which I think is very true and applies very well in relationships.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Who did that quote?
He's from James Sexton. He's a divorce lawyer.
Love it.
Yeah. I'm reading this book now. It's called How to Stay in Love. And it's a pretty interesting book written from a divorce lawyer perspective.
Oh, nice. Well, that done.
So, it's a pretty good book. It's very funny. So in terms of, you mentioned, we talked about connection before, right? In terms of people are trying to connect to one another and then they are in this seek for connection. But what do you think that the biggest problems or things that people do to sabotage their ability to connect with other people?
It's our insecurities, I think. In my experience, and again, this is what I specialize in, is like attachment theory and parent wounds. But I think at the end of the day, we all want to be loved. Like no one wants to do life on their own. We all want to, if we're honest with ourselves, we all want to share it with somebody. Yet we get in our own way massively with our own fears and insecurities from things from the past. They're typically unknown to us. So unresolved trauma that is still manifesting. And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to protect ourselves from getting hurt. That's what it comes down to. So a lot of the work that I do is that I help my clients connect the dots. I help them understand why they think and feel and behave the way that they do. And where does that come from? Like, what happened in your childhood? Like, what was your upbringing like? Were your essential needs met? And it's this period between like 0 and 7, and Bruce Lipton speaks about this a lot. That's where our program is created. That's when we're like a sponge. So typically, if you have an insecure attachment style, there will be a series of events between 0 and 7 that have created an insecurity. Now that could be an anxious insecurity where you're really seeking needs, and that could be your self-worth, significance, safety, security. And that might have been because you've grown up with parents or caregivers that were inconsistent in the way that they showed up for you and met your needs, creating this anxiety now of like, where is this coming from for me? Or maybe you grew up with parents or caregivers who kind of left you to it, left you to your own devices, where you kind of had to depend on yourself for your own needs. And maybe you grew up too quickly, or maybe you actually had to care for them. Hence, then you become a bit avoidant, as in like, I don't need anyone, I can do it all on my own, which was me. And then you've got another element, which is called disorganized attachment style, which is a combination of both, where you're anxious and avoidant. So there's that hot, cold, where you push and pull. You might be like testing people. And typically that's if like you've experienced trauma. So if your source of love when you were a child was also a source of fear, you're typically disorganized. But again, like just to put it in an umbrella, these are all fears and insecurities that are manifesting in different ways.
That's very interesting. And I think that everything can be resolved with truth. And I think that a lot of us are using coping mechanisms to be able to, distract the other person from the truth, which is, this scares the hell out of me. And one thing that I worked very well for myself and for people I know is that you just, be truthful to yourself. First thing first, you have to acknowledge to yourself the fact that he's not uncomfortable. It's not that you don't like this person. It's just the fact that being attached to somebody, it's scary and it's uncomfortable and, makes you feel vulnerable and makes you feel exposed. And then the next thing I've done personally is to be open to this to partner. You say like, listen, this scares the hell out of me, but I'm willing to do it. And I just want you to know. And then, I learned from the partner, it's like, yeah, I'm scared too. It's like we're in the same situation. And it's pretty interesting and funny to see like, oh, both of us are in the same pot. Nobody has their stuff figured out. We're just trying our best at all time. I think that's really beautiful. And then when you're truthful to yourself and truthful to other people, that's also helped. That helps a lot. The connection builds up.
Oh my God, it's huge. It's that courage piece that Brene Brown speaks about. And to be vulnerable, you have to display a lot of courage, because most people hate being vulnerable. Hate, putting themselves out there like that, and really sharing and being honest about their deepest fears and insecurities, because almost you're giving someone a window, to hurt you in that way by letting them in and letting them know what that is. But as you just said then, it's also that's where you can build connection. And without vulnerability, you can't purely connect. You can't, because there's always that wall up.
That's something truly interesting, because logically it doesn't make any sense, right? In the sense that I had these quotes for a long time and everybody that I met agrees with it, which goes like, I prefer to be hated for who I am as opposed to love for someone I'm not. And everybody agrees with that. Everybody says like, okay, sure, I want to be loved for something I'm not, and somebody doesn't love me for who I am, I prefer not to be around that person. Yet, it's very common for people to hide stuff or to try to pretend that they're a better version of themselves or like a different version of themselves, even though they would not want to be with a person that loves them for who they are. And it seems like a contradictory thing for me.
It's so funny actually that you say that, because I know that we're going to be speaking about like dating apps as well, like in this conversation. And I think how often do you see that? People pretend to be something that they're not online to try and get that like, or try and initially get that engagement from somebody. Yeah, how many times do you hear people going on dates or starting a relationship and it kicks off, yet people end up disappointed because they're not who they say they were. You know, they fall down on their expectations of how people present themselves. And it's like, why? Why waste your time? Why waste the other person's time? Why pretend if it's not who you are? You know, like, just, you know, be unapologetically yourself and just own your authenticity.
I think that's very attractive, you know, and see somebody who's true themselves, and they're not afraid to make fun of themselves, or they don't take themselves too seriously. That's a very attractive factor. Like, everybody that meets that was like, oh man, this guy's really cool, you know?
It is so magnetic. And that's the other thing. Like, again, it's like a feeling. It's like this energy exchange. Like, you can tell when someone's being fake. Like, you might not even know them, but you can see the way that they're presenting themselves. It's almost like they're trying too hard. You know, they're being too conscious about the way that they are presenting themselves, versus someone that comes in that is just completely owning it and present. And again, you can just feel the difference, right?
So how do you say that you can build that courage to be yourself when you have this level of insecurities, but like the below those insecurities is also like a really great part of yourself. Sometimes you can be insecure with something that is fantastic about yourself, which is something mind-blowing to me. And when I meet people and they're insecure about something, I was like, oh, that's the best part about you, actually. You know, like, I really like that part about you. And it happens very oftenly. I think that our perception of ourselves and the perception of the people around us on us is completely different. And then we just like, I think a bit of reinforcement from people helped that tremendously. And it's like, hey, I really like, you know, the way your hair looks. Like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like, that's cool.
It's so true, though. Like, again, to quote Brene Brown, but I was listening to her audiobook yesterday, Atlas of the Heart, and we were talking about vulnerability. So that's obviously what we, you know, to be vulnerable, we need to be courageous. But she was saying how we hate to be vulnerable, yet that is what we love the most in somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is this massive paradox within vulnerability. And I was like, oh, that's wild. I've never actually thought about that before.
What do you think people are afraid of when they are being vulnerable? I don't think that hurts. It's necessarily a big one, because I know people that are engaged in very dangerous sports and then they're not afraid to die. Although they're very afraid to be emotionally vulnerable in front of other people. So, you know, like in the natural scenario, think that the worst case scenario is death, right? But I know people who are not afraid of death, although they're afraid of being vulnerable in front of the other people. What do you think people are afraid of?
Rejection, abandonment, for being who they are. They're fully exposing themselves and not being accepted as they are.
So you feel like
they'd rather pretend.
if I'm putting in front a mask and then people reject me, I don't feel personally rejected, because I feel like, you know, they rejected this projection of myself, which is not me. So therefore, I'm still lovable as me, not, you know, the person. They reject somebody else, not me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. And then it's happened most of the time for people to reject the mask when they could have loved us for who we are. I think that's more common than not, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. It's quite sad, isn't it?
It is pretty sad. So what would be a good coping mechanism for somebody who's afraid to be vulnerable in front of somebody else? And then what would be like a small step they could take to be able to open up and to say like, okay, I want to expose myself, I want people to see me for who I am.
I would say, first of all, find out what your attachment style is, because that's going to help you understand how you're showing up, right, in your insecurity. Because that's going to help you identify how you need to move the needle, right, and what are your fears behind your insecurity. Depending on what your attachment style is, your fear is going to be different. So then you can start to like rewire that fear and look at where it's come from. Secondly, surround yourself with people that are secure in their attachment style, because depending on the dynamic that you're in, they're going to trigger you massively. What's really interesting is that there is this game in attachment theory, which is really fun. If you're anxious, you will typically seek someone that is avoidant, and vice versa. And then there's this cat and mouse game that happens, and it's just re-triggering both of their attachment styles. So the more the avoidant person runs off, the more the anxious person runs. And then when the avoidant person leans in, the anxious person moves away. So there is this familiarity that is that draws them in to one another. You know, so many of my clients, you know, I also support, I've got 2 platforms. So I'm really supporting like nomads on LinkedIn, on Instagram, kind of more so female entrepreneurs, remote workers, and they are typically more anxious. And it's really common for my clients to come to me because they are seeking unavailable men, emotionally unavailable men. And it's such a strong pattern. And it's almost like an obsession. They know that they're doing it, they know why, but they can't stop.
Is it trying to get something that's ungettable?
Yeah.
Do you think that modeling has something to do with that? And when I say modeling, that's what we see on other people, what we see online. Because I've noticed in romantic comedies, which is sometimes a parameters for how relationships should be, which is really wrong. Because in one thing I want to say for the audience also, like I'll take it's gonna resonate with you as well. A securely attached person, a person who has a secure attached style, does not make a sympathetic character. And it's not traumatic because it's not going to work out. It's not going to throw, you step off the window. It's not going to just make a drama. It's not going to come to uninvited to your house and start shouting at you. That's not going to happen. Person with secure is very much moderated and calibrated. And that does make a cinematic characters. All cinematic characters that we see, all the drama that we see, it's necessary for making a movie. You can't make a movie without drama, so you need broken characters, put them together to make a bit of drama, to shout at each other, to do something preposterous, so that can make, entertaining materials to watch. Any TV show, any movie, most of the time, they have broken characters because they are cinematic, they're dramatic. And I think that sometimes people look at them as like, oh, this is the kind of relationship I want. And we have a wrong modeling system into our mindsets of like, oh my God, that was so romantic. But something that happens very often in romantic comedies is that at the end, one of the characters does something truly big to make up for something else that they've done before. And then people come like, oh, my partner never did something like that. That means I'm not in the right relationship.
Oh my God, totally.
I will take a quick break from this show and talk about a real powerful tool. It would only take 20 seconds and then we'll get right back. System.io is an all-in-one marketing platform that comes with email marketing funnel, building website, membership site management, and a lot of automation capabilities. Traditionally, if you want to build a website, you'd have to integrate and pay for a lot of additional tools. But System.io brings everything that you need in one powerful dashboard. You can start for free, give it a go, and discover all these capabilities mixed into one platform. Check the link in the description to get started. And now, let's get back.
Totally. I think, we have so many expectations out there, that I think are at our detriment, especially if you're dating, if you're single and dating. I think you're looking for the one, your soulmate, and you have a tick box. And if they're not ticking all your boxes, then it's on to the next one, right? Because at the world that we live in, it's quantity over quality, and there's just so much choice available to us. So I think that is a massive detriment. But you're right in terms of that these Hollywood films, there is this constant drama and chaos, and for some people that's really exciting, especially if that was your environment when you grew up, because that is your normal. So even though it's really upsetting and there is a lot of drama and there's lots of ups and downs, people can subconsciously create it because that is what their nervous system knows. So it
people
feels like home.
people feel loved in a chaotic environment because they grew up in a chaotic environment, so they want to recreate that in their own relationship to mimic whatever they perceive as love. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's basically, it's, as we talked about before, that's exactly what I want to get to. It's in terms of modeling, we have broken models in our lifestyle, and most people unfortunately come from, families that they don't present a really good example of growth, successful relationship. And then just because that becomes like the status quo, the normal, the natural, I think most people try to replicate that, and then subconsciously they connect love to that chaotic environment. And I think that's why you have the attachment styles like avoidant, which is like, I don't want that. I just want to be away from it because that's what I perceive as love. So I don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, going back to that program, 0 to 7 is where our program's created and our neural pathways are mapped out. We don't know why we think and feel the way that we do, and we don't understand why am I acting differently in this situation versus somebody else. And that awareness piece is so powerful. Being able to connect the dots, understand it all, because when you have awareness and you're no longer operating on autopilot, you then have the power to choose to show up differently. And that's a big part of what coaching is, right? It's awareness and choice. Often, many of us are operating without the awareness. Therefore, we don't have the ability to choose to do it differently.
How can people become aware? Because I think that, especially in run to relation, people tend to do the same mistake over and over again. And then with the sole belief that, man, this time is different. I feel it in my heart. And then they end up 2 years later, whatever. And I think it talks just like before about the fact that a lot of people who get divorced end up remarried. It's like 86% or something like that end up remarrying the same in the next 5 years. And we're talking about like bad divorces. Divorce is not a fun thing to go through. And then they probably say like, oh my God, I'm never going through this again. And 5 years later, most of them are already remarried. It's like, okay, you're doing the same thing all over again. The thing that you said you're never going to do again. Why do you think that makes us so forgettable? Why do you make us so gullible to, just after going through a terrible experience, jump to the next one, thinking that this time is going to be different by doing the same thing?
I think we want a quick fix as human beings, right? And we like to blame other people versus take accountability. It's not me, it's you, right? Like, that's our ego. And of course, like in a relationship and a marriage, it's a two-way street. Of course, there will be things that the other person has done that has, caused the relationship to break down. It's so much harder to look at yourself and look at where you're accountable. And you've got to do the work. That awareness isn't just going to drop into you. You have to, if speak to someone, work with a coach, work with a therapist, help someone to help you understand yourself. And we all have blind spots, right? So there'll be a lot of books out there as well that can help you. And I'm all for like self-help, but the thing is with books, when you're down this self-help journey, is that no one can call you out on your blind spots and on your bullshit. So we all have a lens in how we see the world. My lens will be different to your lens based on your upbringing, based on your own biases. Now, the beauty of obviously working with somebody is that they can call you out and reflect things back to you. We all have limiting beliefs. And a lot of the time I'm doing that with my clients. I often ask them this one simple phrase: is that true? Is that always true? And then, there is that penny drop moment of like, okay, this thing that I've been telling myself that is my truth, I'm now being asked for evidence if it's always true, and actually I can't find it. So it's not true. And I've been carrying it around with me. And actually, maybe it's something that I could put down because it's not serving me.
That's a very interesting point. And I think that's a very common thing in negotiation as well. You have two parties and you have part A and part B. And everybody has the fair lens The fair lens is basically that every individual from that conflict, they believe that they are the one being fair and the other party is not fair, right? So I'm thinking I'm fair and I'm proposing a deal and the other person like, you are fair, but I'm fair. And it's like those, like, how do you mitigate that process? And I think negotiation with, it's a good thing is just trying to understand the other person. It's something called tactile empathy. It sounds very cold, but it's basically try to understand the other person without necessarily agree with them. It's like, okay, I would just want to see your points, but like I don't make up my mind whether I agree with you or not. I just want to see where you're coming from. And that's a very important thing, to be able to see the perspective of the other person, just to understand what's their parameters of fairness. So when you understand the parameters of fairness, you understand what exactly they're coming from, you understand why is it that they believe that this thing is fair. It's like, me, I'm doing something which is not necessarily something that I want to do, which I'm making you feel that this deal, like this engagement, it's unfair. So it's important to think, to realize, and like, it's an example that I give people time, with the lemon. So you have two people and both of them want the lemon, right? So you only have one lemon, and then how do you split that? Sorry?
Sorry, so I was with you. I was like, yeah, okay, so we've got one lemon.
One lemon and two people, and then you need to, every one of them needs the lemon. And everybody feel like it's fair for me to get a lemon. How do you handle that count?
Split the lemon?
Yeah, everybody goes to split the lemon. That's the common thing. But like, what you do in negotiation, you ask what and how question. It's like, why do you need the lemon for? And you see that one lemon needs to make lemonade, the other one wants to make a pie and just need the body of the lemon. And say, the first conclusion, you need to split the lemon, and then everybody's going to get half of the thing that they need, right? But if you ask, like, what is it that you need the lemon for? And it's like, can we get both what we want without having to cut the lemon in half and just have half of what we want? I think, that's come the part of understanding the other person's point of view. It's like, why is it that you need that? And is there a way that we can get both what we want without having to cut the lemon and get half of what we need?
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I feel like we should be taught these things at school, shouldn't we? And just, how to conflict resolution, right? Because that's constantly what that comes down to is, we argue because we haven't got our needs met. Now, if we were just to stay curious and ask questions versus just trying to be right, our level of connection would be so much deeper, because every time you have a conflict and you are able to repair that conflict, your connection with that person grows.
Yeah, that's something I want to discuss with you as well. Like, when something happens and you don't have your needs met, there are three potential scenarios, right? So I learned that as a manager. When somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, there are three potential scenarios. It's scenario one, they haven't understood the task. They didn't understand what they were supposed to be doing. Second of all, they couldn't do it. They didn't have the skills or the resources to do it. And a third of all is they didn't want to do it. And I think that's come across anything in human experience. Like, every time, and that's one of the reasons for which you can do one of the three things. If you want to do something, it's for one of the three reasons. Either you don't know what to do, you can't do it, or you don't want to do it. It's one of three. And I think that in relationships are, for some reason, and I don't clearly understand why, our first presumption is bad intention as opposed to anything else. If my partner doesn't do something that I really like, or they do something that I don't like, my first assumption, or the non-presumption, is to say they didn't want to. And we don't stop to think about, like, did they know that? Or could they do that? Or just presume, like, they know what I want and they don't want to do it. What do you think is that initial presumption towards the other person, is to believe that they don't want and they do that on purpose?
In my experience, looking at our saboteurs, our destructive coping mechanisms, is that we fall into victim and we make it all about us. And it's like, you're wrong, I'm right. And to get that pedestal, it's like, therefore, you have done the worst thing. Poor me. So we naturally just assume the worst in people because that makes us the victim.
Do you think it's also because it's easier to be? No, it's might be a different conversation. But I've learned recently it's something very, very basic, but it's easier to be angry or upset as opposed to being sad.
Yeah, and even on that point, it's very hard to be empathetic to somebody when you're triggered. Like, actually, that part of your brain typically switches off.
That's a good point. One exercise that I do personally, and I think that would be a helpful exercise, is to sit down and try to explain the situation to myself from the perspective of the other person. And I assume for a second that I'm a lawyer and I represent the other person and I need to build a case for the other person. Like, okay, cool. Why would that person act in such manner? Why would be their reasoning? But that still be a reasonable excuse or reasonable, operation mode for them to act in such manner? And in a way that would convince the third parties. And then when I do that exercise, it just comes to me so naturally that it could be a million reasons for which they acted that way, as opposed to just they're being bitchy about it and just want to feel miserable.
I love that. That's so fun. But I think it takes a certain person, right, to be able to step into that when you're triggered, right? When there's emotions flooding your system, especially if you have gone into that victim mode and they've tried to really hurt me. Why would they do that to me? And then to be able to, right, I'm now going to try and see it from their perspective. I think amazing that you've got that in your toolbox. I think what I would help my clients with to get there is helping them to self-soothe and regulate their nervous system before they could then step into that space. Do you have any sort of those kind of tools that you utilize, or would you say that you have got quite a good control over your nervous system?
This is something also that I want to debate with you as well, because in negotiation, one of the most basic rules is that you cannot get emotional. If you get emotional, you will lose. And it's basically a pathway towards losing the conflict, because you get emotional and then your emotion can get better out of it. It's similar to fighting, right? If you get angry into a fight, you're more likely to lose. And the reason for that is because you're a lot more focused on attack as opposed to defense. And when you attack, basically, you open yourself more to be hurt. So it's the same thing in conflicts and negotiations. If you get upset with the other person, if you get personal, if you get offended, you're more likely to lose and to do something stupid and to do something emotional that is going to hurt your capacity to be able to make a good deal. But I want to ask you this from perspective of relationship, because I know that in relationship it's not really great to suppress your anger, because in negotiation it's a limited time process, and after that's done you kind of make the deal, and it's a win or lose situation. You get that done, it's okay, now I can do my thing and defer my anger somewhere else. But in a relationship, I know that it might not be the greatest way to be able to I need to work on this deal and I can't get emotion because of it. How would you approach that in relationships?
Yeah, I think, we often shy away or suppress uncomfortable emotions, right? Like anxiety, anger, frustration. And I think, our emotional landscape is so valuable as data to be able to really identify what we're feeling, because that tells us so much versus blanket words like, I feel good, bad, which we often use. I mean, we've got such a vast range of emotions, hundreds, yet we use on average 6 to 12. The human population.
Yeah, that's something truly interesting. I can give you a very face-to-stick example is that last week I had the big interaction with my partner, and then she said something very trivial that made me feel a bit disconnected, so I felt distant. And I was just half an hour later, I was in the store and I was supposed to buy a bunch of products, bunch of teas, and I was supposed to get something for myself, something for her. And then I have this process that it's a marketing-driven process, because I work in marketing. Every time I buy something on the way towards the till, I'm thinking about, why did I choose product A as opposed to product B? Just this is my mind happening. And I was thinking to myself, why would I choose that? And I knew that she likes a specific kind of tea, but I didn't get that one. So I was thinking to myself, why would I do that? Why would I choose a tea that I know she doesn't like that much? And then, I have this honest self that always come to his, give me this right away. And then the other is like, because effort, that's why. And I was like, oh my God, do I feel that way? Am I so sad that I want to get back into like a micro element within the interaction? It's like, oh God, that's interesting. It's like always when you feel upset or like you feel a bit curious with somebody, if you don't communicate that to the person, you're going to try subconsciously to find some other way to get it back. Yeah. And I find that to be fascinating, just like you can't express emotions forever. You can just like act casually within the conversation and they're like, I'll get you back next time.
It is fascinating when you can start to like analyze yourself like that, right? And understand what are your motivations behind your actions, where are they coming from, what is your intent, and also what is it that you need off the back of that, more importantly, right? And so kind of going back to your question is, I think it's really important that we don't suppress our emotions, befriend them, be curious about them, and have healthy ways to express them. They're part of their humanness. They're here for a reason. Don't deny them. Don't feel shame about them. And look at your patterns. How do you express them at the minute? And is it serving you? Often we project our anger at somebody else. There's other ways to project your anger in a way that where actually you can release it, from your body. And you can self-soothe, and then you can use this information of, okay, I felt angry. Well, why did I feel angry? Where is that coming from? And what is it that I actually now need from my partner as a resolution? So as to move forwards so we can, reconcile and become closer again. And again, within that is a huge amount of vulnerability as well, to let somebody know why you're angry.
I feel like sometimes we're trying to communicate that in a non-verbal way. So like we're acting, I wouldn't say bitchy, but like we just pout for 2 weeks to hope that the partner is gonna figure out that we're upset by the fact that, you didn't buy the tea I like. So it's like, I don't understand why. Why is it easier for us to manifest formal presentments physically and through behavior as opposed to just saying like, hey, that thing that you said to me yesterday didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I think we can be really passive aggressive, can't we? Which is so toxic because the other person typically, but then, you're in a game and you don't even realize it.
Why is it easier?
I think because we haven't given ourselves that time to sit down and understand why we're behaving the way that we are. And it is a series of it's a chain reaction, right? So something will happen that will make you feel a certain way. And then a thought is created. There's a story that we are running then. And the story could be, again, we're the victim. That person is a bitch. They're trying to hurt me. They don't love me. They don't respect me. Da, 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 da. That's going to create more feelings. And off the back of those feelings, there's actions. And then those actions will then kind of reinforce our thoughts and feelings. Because also often, when we're acting in those types of ways, that doesn't feel good. When we're judging somebody, we're often judging other people judging us. Take notice of how that makes you feel.
Oh my God, this is such a good line. I love it. It's like, wait, I'm going to say that again. We're judging people judging us. Or understanding of their judgment to us.
And often it's such a massive, false, negative assumption.
Oh my God, that's such a good one. But like with us, and what I to just kind of continue the situation, the example I gave, what I did instead, because I became aware that I'm doing that, and I just text them back and so like, hey, listen, whatever you said to me made me feel distant, and I know you didn't intend that way. I don't, you have the best intention for me, and so forth. Like, just made me feel distant. And then she called me back in 5 minutes. And we talked for like 10 minutes and then kind of sorted it out. And it's like, it's so easy. You don't necessarily have to, because most of the time, I won't say always, but most of the time, it's just a trivial thing it's not something that you do with intent. He's like, I want to make my partner feel miserable today. Like, I'm going to do that. It's just like comes along, and then it's a downward spiral. It's like, if I'm not happy, why should you? Maybe like, I'll get you back. And I think that's a very toxic way to approach and to go down into your relationship.
Yeah, massively. And again, like often all of this stuffing is happening on a subconscious level. We're not maybe maliciously, intently doing it. Again, it's just a way to protect ourselves.
Yeah,
creating
that's
that
so
distance, taking your power back of the situation. But how good did it feel for you to share what you was feeling and then have that 10-minute conversation, like versus how you was feeling when you was at the shop?
It's definitely getting a lot better, but like I felt bad for a second because I felt vulnerable in a sense, and it was slightly uncomfortable. Say that, but I was like, I think that's why it's still mysterious to me. Why is it easier for us to express stuff through behavior as opposed to words? And I'm speculating here. One of the things is that if you say something through words, you have to take responsibility for it. If you say something through action, you can take it back. It's like, I didn't like that way, just your perception of it. So it's you can run away from the responsibility of your actions. As opposed to when you say it's like, I need to face something within myself as well, as opposed to just like it's your fault.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I've not thought about that before actually. And it's true, right? Because actions can be misinterpreted. I mean, so can words, but when you're explicitly saying something,
yeah, it's like that's you have to own that.
You've put that in the space.
Yeah, it's out there, and I think most of the time, regardless what the situation is, it's always something in you and something in the partner. Obviously, the partner could phrase that in a manner that's more nice and caring, whatever. But like also, you've been triggered in that way, so you have to pay attention to that as well. So that means you have to take up a degree. You have to face yourself as well as the partner. I think that means that it's something with you as well. And sometimes it is easier to nag back as opposed to saying nicely. It's like, you always do that. You always say that. You always like, never do that. It's like, why would you not say something nice? Again, like, hey, I really love you when you do X, Y, and Z. Like, I appreciate if you do more at X, Y, and Z. And one of the suspicion I have is because of upbringings. Like you see that in other people. It's like, okay, that's a normal way to approach, something that you're upset about. Just, hold it. Or the other one is just holding down until it's big enough to verbalize it. When you feel like it's big enough to verbalize it, you have a lot of stuff under your carpets that it's there. Or it's just pull the right out. It's like, oh my God, there's a lot of things here.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think for people, we don't like to maybe like be dramatic and make a big deal out of things. And I think that there is this fear of bringing something into the relationship, into the space that you want to talk about, and for it to feel minimized or for it to feel insignificant. So I think often we will wait and things will build and build and build and build until it becomes explosive, and then it's a big old mess, right? And I think why didn't we talk about the thing when it was small, months ago?
That's not comfortable.
Yeah, I think there's there is that discomfort that you mentioned. I think it's not feeling like it's significant enough. Again, I think maybe hoping that it's going to change on its own without having to have the uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, we'll all use some sooner or later the ostrich technique, just stick your head in the sand. Hopefully the flies that go away.
Exactly. Like I would rather avoid an uncomfortable conversation than wait. I actually come across a really good saying about this. But you would rather live with the discomfort. That was it. Than have the uncomfortable conversation. You'd rather live with the discomfort of whatever the thing is that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a cumulating thing. And then if you understand the fact that any discomfort that you're encountering in the relationship is gonna be manifested somehow, whether you like it or not, you have to take responsibility for that. It's like, hey, this is gonna hurt me and my partner sooner rather than later. So I need to adjust it. I need to not let that slip into. But I think it's easier to just like go the other way, like it's a big thing. Usually, I develop this concept of the rule of three, which is the first time my partner does something I don't like or appreciate, I just kind of like give the benefit of the doubt, just rethink, maybe just a one-time thing. That the second thing I kind of pay attention to it, and the third time is like I bring it up, like, hey, listen, I've noticed you doing that repeatedly. I've noticed you on occasion A, B, and C. What's this about? That's something that you really want to do, or like it's something that's trivial. And my experience is mind blown because most of the things are trivial. It was like, why do you do? Well, there's no reason. It's just like that's the way I happen to do that. And it's so fascinating to me that most of the things are not like well thought behaviors. It's just something that's my way of doing it. It's not something that I just specifically told you.
Yeah, just out of habit. I love that though, the rule of three.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk to you about is expressing the ability to express our desires. What is that we want? And I found it that sometimes it's very, it's difficult to say that. It's difficult to express what you want. Why do you think that is so difficult?
I honestly think it comes back down to rejection and abandonment. Speaking your truth and not being able to then get what you want, right? There's okay, if you say what you want and you put it out there, there's disappointment as well.
The thing that the biggest fears that we have is that we're not going to get what we want.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get what you want if you don't ask for it, right?
Yeah. So there's a cost. There's a cost either way. And again, this is quite a big topic for my clients, my avoidant clients.
I think I do have a theory that I will run through you and let me know what you think about it. My suspicion is that we're not necessarily afraid that we're not going to get what we want. There is deeper fear, which is a fear of getting it in a disgusting way. And say, it's like, for example, let us say my partner is like, hey, I would like flowers, I would like flowers. And then she's not afraid that I'm not going to get flowers. She's afraid more of the fact that one day I'm going to call her and be like, haha, here's your stupid flowers. Are you happy now? And to have somebody doing something for you with the absolute disgust just because like you said so many times. I think that's a more fearful situation as opposed to just not getting the flowers.
Yeah, I see what you're saying for sure. I mean, I think there is that. It's so much nicer for you to not have to ask for what you want and for someone to just know what you want and do it off their own back versus it being like a request. Like there is, again, like a very different energy there because we, again, falling back into our victim, oh, you're only doing that because I've asked you to do that, not because you want to. Why can you have just done it without me having to ask or without me having to tell you?
Because I don't know why we presume that people can read our minds. Because we can't read we can't read our own minds. If I ask you now, I just bring you in. It's like, hey, what do you want? It's gonna take a while to think about it. Like, how would you expect somebody else to just magically guess what is that you want when you're gonna take time to think about it?
But the thing is, a lot of people haven't even thought about it. Again, I'll ask my clients often, did you tell them? Did you tell them that was what you were expecting? That was what you wanted? Oh, no, I didn't. Like, it is literally like a light bulb moment for people. Like, we have a lot going on in our head that needs, to be examined. It needs to be unpacked and presented it back for us to understand, how we are self-sabotaging, how we're operating in this relationship, is damaging the relationship and just small things like that, not even realizing that we're expecting people to read our minds can be like such a huge transformation for a couple.
Yeah. It's really fun because, again, going back to it's such a difficult thing to just say the things. And I can give you another example. A friend of mine came to me some times ago and was like, hey, Kevin, you're a really good negotiator and I have a situation for you that I need some help. It's like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? It's like, yeah, I have my flatmates and they're never cleaning up the house and I'm wondering whether we have any technique that I can influence them to start cleaning more. And I thought about for a second. I was like, hey, ever tried talking to them? I was like, huh.
Did he want to leave him just like post-it notes?
I was like, I didn't think about that,
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The things that we will do to avoid an uncomfortable conversation and what we will put up with.
Yeah.
As
and
a result.
I think I've seen sometimes, that even myself, I tend to beat around the bush and I just speak for half an hour about something. I just kind of like run around circles, and I realized after half an hour that I haven't said anything. I just kind of like, run around in circles and and it's interesting to me. Why is it that it's uncomfortable to say something, and then it's like uncomfortable to express yourself?
I think we are scared of conflict as well. I think a lot of the time, we don't want to hurt the other person. We don't, especially if things are good, right? And there's like little things that are happening that are annoying us. But overall, the relationship's good. Like we kind of have this like, I don't want to rock the boat. Like we're really good right now. I don't want to create an argument. It's that kind of perception. But also we don't know how to approach it in a way that is going to be really effective. And I teach my clients like nonviolent communication, which is a framework that allows you to approach conflict in a nonviolent way, hence nonviolent communication. And it's about sharing the observation, sharing how you feel and taking responsibility. Not you made me feel, it's I feel. And understanding what your needs are and what the resolution would be for you. So you can go into that conversation prepared to take accountability and to really share what's going on. And I think a lot of the time we just go into blaming and attacking with no idea what we want and how we really feel. And we want the other person to fix it. And it's like, well, how can they fix it if you're not clear on yourself of why that's annoyed you and what you need and what an outcome would be? So I think, this is really conversational skills that we need to learn and we need to practice to get good at them, and bring that into your relationship.
That's something that it's also very common in negotiation. It's called labeling. So basically you use terms like it seems like or it looks like. It seems like this makes you uncomfortable. It looks like that. And just kind of like try to label everything that the other person does. It's like, hey, this is what I get from you. This is the message I'm getting from you. This is, I see that you're getting upset about this and you're saying in a manner that just are comfortable for you. And it seems like you don't, you're not very happy with the way I'm acting. And it seems like, and just label everything that they do. And I think that most of the conflicts are deeper conflict. Actually conflicts of feeling heard and listened to. I think that's my experience. Almost 80% of the cases where there's a conflict is not necessarily the conflict in itself. The person didn't feel heard. So just like listening attentively to the person and then, repeating back what they said, like, hey, listen, I want to make an effort to understand whatever you're saying. So I'm just going to say what I understood and correct me if I'm wrong. And I think that's really powerful technique that is very common in negotiation as well.
Oh my God, it's huge. The active listening, just making sure that you're both on the same page. Like, it's so common. So I coach couples as well, and we could be talking about something. And sometimes I'm like, okay, we even talking about the same event here because they've both interpreted the event in such a different way. And we do that within our conversations all the time. So just taking that moment to reflect back and ensure that, okay, are you on the same page? Am I hearing you correctly? And do it in a way of, curiosity, for empathy and understanding, and making the other person feel seen and heard is huge. And it's such a good way to start any conversation where you feel like that there's going to be conflict.
Yeah, that's definitely a fantastic thing too. It's not only to make the other person feel heard, but actually to make sure you understand correctly what's going on. It's like am I getting this correctly? And it happens, sometimes that, when I summarize the thing, that person is like, hey, no, you didn't get that right. It's actually something else. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't get it. And you kind of, it's basically like, hey, you want to understand your partner. That's exactly what it is. Like, I want to hear you. I want to make sure that I understand correctly. And, this is funny because I spend time with people who don't have English as the main language to have like a difference in wording. And then sometimes they just says, and I tend to ask for a word definition, like, what does that mean? And like a new example, a very good friend of mine has the perception that, what was it, decent, it was a word that means basically fantastic. And I was asking her, like, how was that? It's like, yeah, it was decent. It's like, what do you mean? Like, you just, I was doing something, I felt like I was doing great. And she was like, it was decent. And I asked her, like, what does decent mean to you? It's like, it means fantastic. It's like, no, it doesn't. It means okay-ish. It's like, really? Yeah.
And again, even like when that's such a good way of understanding, even like, okay, what does a successful, healthy relationship look like for you? What does healthy communication look like for you? Again, we'll have like different interpretations of what that looks like. Okay, how can we get on the same page here? What is it that I need to change? What do you need to do more or less of to give you your version of what you look like?
I want to get you some thoughts onto a technical communication, which I've been using, which is sometimes emailing, which is when you're in a relationship, you have a few things that, you can talk about a lot of things, but there are a few things that are a bit more uncomfortable to communicate. And I advise sometimes people, and I do it myself, to just write a long letter or long email or to express those things. Because first, you have more time to express them clearly and to kind of like phrase them in a manner that's they're actually accurate as part, they represent the most accurate version of what you're going through. Second of all, gives you the time to express yourself without being interrupted. And third of all, gives you the other person the chance to deliver the other person looking back at you and feeling a bit intimidating, or just seeing their reaction firsthand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many benefits that are actually backed up by science for journaling, like writing down your thoughts. And expressing like how you feel and taking the time to reflect that, I think is super important. And again, it's a skill. I think often when we're going through a lot and we're in turmoil, we can self-sabotage and not do the things that actually serve us. I think it's hard to sit with yourself and process how you're feeling. We would rather distract ourselves with Netflix, shopping, food, alcohol, swiping, than actually really look at what is going on. But that is going to be your biggest return in investment, is to sit and process that, for the relationship with yourself and others. And if you can build that into like a practice for yourself, like the payoff will be huge. Because otherwise, if you are going to distract and suppress, then it's just going to be a reoccurring issue for you and your problem is not going to get resolved.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I love that. Okay, I want to go back to the beginning for a second, which I mean by the beginning is to the beginning of a relationship. So you mentioned that you also coach people who are single and people who are looking to date. And I want to talk about, when you're in a new environment as digital nomad, you're out in a new country, new city, up new environment as a whole. What would be a best approach for somebody to get to go meet new people? And I'm talking about online, offline. And I would also like to hear your thoughts on dating apps and how efficient they are and whether people should use them as well.
Yeah. I think, right, okay, so dating apps have got a lot of bad rap. And I think it really depends on how you use them. I think as nomads, there's a lot of apps for you to drop down into a new location and connect with people, whether that's local or other nomads. So I think technology, you can really utilize it to your advantage, but make sure that you're using it and it's not using you. I think dating apps are there to keep you single and to keep you active on their app.
Interesting. That's a good point. It's like if you're on a dating app and then you enter a relationship, you're not going to be an active client of that dating app. So is that a good business model to get you to meet the right person for you?
And I think that, right, this whole swipe culture, it's so easy for us to just onto the next one, onto the next one, onto the next one. And then there is a limit, right? There's a daily limit on these apps. Now, I think you need to get really clear as a user of your intention of why am I here? What is it that I want? And I think often we don't know what we want and we get shiny object syndrome. Because it's like, oh, I really like this and I really like that. And we're like all over the shop with our intention and what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like if you don't know what you want to do and it gets overwhelmed with so many options, you're just going to go like, oh, I like this. And then you just kind of chase new shiny things that appears in your radar. It's like, oh, that looks cool. Like, that's cooler too. That's cooler too. Like, you end up with just kind of going through multiple things as opposed to that.
And I think that dopamine hit, right? Like of connecting with someone new, like that match that you get, that initial, like those butterflies that you get. And again, especially with avoidant people, like we're good with, those surface level conversations. We're not really comfortable when things get deeper, where we have to get vulnerable, where we let our guard down. So it's easy for us to be in that space and to get the feels that we think that we need. And people often get burnt out with apps. They lose their hope with apps because things haven't materialized, right? But then think about, okay, well, how have you contributed to that? Why have things not materialized? And again, what is it that you're looking for? Are you actually looking for a partner? And I think, we can all be on there for different reasons. Are you just looking for a hookup? Like, be clear around your intention. Or what, sorry?
Or just entertaining?
Yeah. Are you bored?
Yeah.
Are you literally just bored and craving some dopamine?
That'd be a really good point.
So get clear with your intentions. I think also have those conversations. I think we shy away from that uncomfortable conversation of when you match someone, what is it that you're looking for? So you don't waste your time.
That structure is not really sexy, if I can express it that way. It's not like, hey, this is my checklist, I will match that. But it's not like a fun way to start a conversation with somebody. I think that's why people run away from it.
Yeah. And again, it depends what your intention is. Like if you are there just for a hookup, you're probably not going to be the one that wants to instigate that.
Yeah, for sure. But like, let's talk about comparison between dating in the real life or also moving to a new location and then approach people in real life as opposed to dating apps. Like, which one would you prefer? Which one would you advise people to go towards?
I think do both. So you're saying whether like to connect with people on apps or in real life, yeah?
Yeah. If somebody moves to a new location and is looking to start dating or like they are looking for a partner, what will be their approach for that?
Yeah, I think apps are amazing because you can connect with people that you might not have done so, if they're not in your vicinity. But also like connect with people locally, go to meetups, join your local running team, go to your yoga class, like connect yourself with locals. And I think also be really like open, just because a person that you're speaking to might not be what you're looking for, you don't know who their best friend is. Their best friend could be your ideal partner.
Okay. So would that mean that you could approach the dating apps more like to meet people as opposed to date people?
Again, if you're looking for, I would say dating apps, obviously people on there are specifically looking at your profile as a potential match. But in terms of, like your coffee shop or your yoga class, like just be open about your connections because you don't know how those connections are going to evolve and who you're going to meet off the back of them. So being like curious and intentional, I'm a big believer in law of attraction.
Oh yeah, fair enough. But like one thing I would like to mention for everybody who's watching is that not everybody who's a potential suitor for dating is on a dating app.
Yeah.
So that's a limiting tool in his own terms.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why I think tackle both.
That shouldn't replace the social interaction that you should have on a regular basis. Just because I'm dating after just waiting for my soulmate to appear and to match me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think again with your expectations, again with this tick box that we have in our heads, maybe of what we're looking for this like perfect person. And they just don't exist. Perfect doesn't exist, right?
But you don't feel like our checklist is basically, especially for somebody who's single, the checklist is built often of qualities of former partners, and then if somebody is your ex, there is a reason for which that person is your ex. So it's maybe a blind things that you're looking for that either doesn't exist or you generally don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's worth looking at this. I think for many people there is some deal breakers, and then there's some core values that they're looking for, and then there's kind of everything in the middle, right? And I think spend time to get to know what are your values and what is it that you're looking for in a relationship when it comes down to your values.
Yeah, I think that's really good and important points. But like, I think that values shouldn't be such a big list. I think you should have like 2 or 3 values that you hold very close to yourself, and then everything else. And you should be aware of whether it's important for you, what's not important for you. And if something is not important for, like, don't bother you, kind of debating that topic in the first place.
And just check like how superficial you're being as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's I think that's kind of difficult to be self-aware. Like, can't be superficial today.
And tap into your intuition as well. I mean, like for me and like my partner, his profile was super basic. There was something about, like, I kind of had a moment, and I was in an airport at the time. I was in Geneva, and my flight got delayed, and I was on Hinge. And yeah, his profile was super basic, but it stopped me in my track. It was weird. And then the chat was amazing. And again, even just from looking at his photos, he's not typically like my type. But I went with my intuition, and I was open, and I was curious. And after 3 months, we moved in with each other. And yeah, it's been 6 months now, so it's all new. But yeah, I went with my intuition, and I kind of removed my judgment, and expectations.
Congratulations. Do you think that this thing of expectation should be completely removed, or maybe should be like, I would say expectation more like an idealistic thing. Like, there are things that are important for me to happen or to be there in our relationships. Like, it can be something very trivial, like good communication, or like, spend time together, or just enjoy something that we have in common. And that could be a realistic or healthy expectation to have.
Yeah, I think you need to do like a reality check on your expectations, right? Because, I often hear, well, the only way to remove disappointment is by not having any expectations at all. But yeah, like your expectations almost create a standard. And there's a standard that you hold for yourself. There's a standard that you expect, from other people. And then if they're not meeting the standard, then is this a relevant match for you? Because I think it's important to have standards for yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to close down on a question that I like to ask to all my guests. Okay. And the question it might not be the most relevant for this topic, but it goes like, why would you like to tell yourself before you started as a digital nomad?
Sorry, say that again.
What would you like to tell your former self before you started as a digital nomad?
Oh, that's such a good question. So there was a lot of synchronicity for me in my journey that allowed my digital nomad life to evolve in the way that it did. And I was super intentional. I really knew what I wanted, and I don't know how, but it all happened in quite a magical way. So I think I would tell myself to put my thoughts and intentions out there Network. I did that. I've always just been a natural networker. And I could have done more of it, really. Comes very natural to me. And maybe just to have made more of an effort to sustain some of the relationships that I've lost along the way. There's some regret there, actually.
Interesting. It's like keeping in touch with people, or just doing a bit more to be able to have them in your life, or what use? I'll be the element that you're regretting the most.
Like, I really cherish all the relationships that I've made along the way, but there's some that you know how friendships do just kind of expire. Again, you know, with where you're at in your life, time zone's a big one. It makes things really difficult, and it's kind of gone. You know, I could obviously re-pick up those relationships now, but I wish I had just sustained them. So yeah, I just wish that they probably were still in my life, but I let them go.
Okay. So shared more that connection that you had, and be grateful for the people that have around you.
Yeah.
I think gratitude is a big thing, and I think goes everything in your life, and including your relationship as well. It with romantic relationship, I feel like it's really easy to forget the good things about our partner, and it's easy to forget the good things about our lives, and we all of a sudden remember them when everything falls apart. It's like, oh man, the kiss there was so nice, you know, I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, so true. We do typically focus on negatives, don't we?
Yeah, I have this exercise I do sometimes. So go.
I can't remember. I think I was going to say something around hindsight, and then gratitude in hindsight rather than versus in the moment.
Yeah, I have an exercise I do in my practice sometimes, which is just whatever it's conflict or whatever it's a difficult situation, to stop for like 10 minutes and name 10 things we're grateful for in our lives. I just kind of like, and then the interesting part about this, at first will sound stupid. It's like, I have trouble to have an face. Like, why would I spend time to do things I'm grateful for? And then you find very difficult to find the first thing, and then you kind of like think about the second thing. You're like, oh my God, and then things are coming to you. It's like, oh my God, I'm actually a great life. You know, it's just like, we're doing great together, and you know, like, we have fantastic experiences. But then I made it so fantastic that you realize that you got so hooked up in your problem that you forgot those things. And I think it's a great exercise to have on a regular basis. Just think about 10 things, or like whatever numbers of things that you're grateful for in your life.
Yeah.
That you forgot about it.
Gratitude is such a powerful tool, you know, to shift energy and cultivate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, that positive energy and shift anything that's negative. And again, I do that with my couples, you know, especially to help them build, trust and communication, is to share what they appreciate about each other. You know, 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, definitely. That's such an easy exercise to do, although like most people don't do it. And I wanna kind of end up in this city, but like I wanna put a poster in my room which has this line: "You deserve to lose everything that you're ungrateful for."
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Have it there as a reminder to like, you know, I need to make sure that I'm grateful for everything that I have. And, you know, just feeling of gratitude brings so much joy into your life, and just focus on like, oh my God, like, things are fantastic. You know, just like I forget that, like, you know, and I was saying always that I think that a blind person would want to have the worst thing in my life, for sure, any day. And I always forget, I can forget that. I don't think that we all can forget that there are people in the planet that would want to have the worst day that we ever had. We would wish for that.
I mean, honestly, like being able to zoom out, like kind of what you're doing there, that perspective shift, right? Being able to like zoom out, and you know, you're going through a challenge, and I like to get my clients to picture themselves on this rock that we call planet Earth, and zoom right out into the solar system and look back down upon yourself, just to get that perspective shift and think about, you know, how significant we are, how small we are, and everything else that's going on not just on this planet, but all the other planets out there as an exercise, and just to notice their problem feel like this big to like this big. And be like, oh,
Yeah, I think
thank you.
it's so easy to lose ourselves into like small details in our lives, but that doesn't even matter. You know, it's a great thing. It's like a stupid thing you can stumble upon.
Yeah.
Danielle, thanks so much for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. I learned quite a bit from you, so I'm pretty grateful for that. So thanks for your time.
Same. Thanks, Octavian. Thank you so much.